Thank you. We now come to the 10-minute rule motion. Tom Tugendhat.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to increase the maximum custodial sentence for the offences of child cruelty and causing or allowing a child or vulnerable adult to die or suffer serious physical harm to imprisonment for life and for connected purposes. Thank you very much to all members of this House who have come here today in support of this bill. The purpose of this bill, Tony's Law, is to ensure that individuals who commit the most serious acts of cruelty against children face appropriate punishment when convicted of this crime. At the moment, the maximum sentence stands at 10 years. I would like to see this raised to life imprisonment. I would like to pay tribute to Tony Hudgell, who is the inspiration for this bill and is in the gallery today, accompanied by his mother, Paula, and others from his real family, the family that loves and cares for him. This House has had the pleasure of their company before, in January, when I presented their petition of more than 12,000 signatures calling on the government to reconsider the maximum sentence for child cruelty. This bill continues their campaign, and I am proud to put it before the House today. Shortly after Tony Hudgell was born, he was attacked by his biological parents. They broke his fingers and his toes. They tore his ligaments in his legs. They caused such terrible damage that both his legs had to be amputated, and Tony is now wheelchair-bound. Tony was only admitted to hospital 10 days after these injuries were inflicted. We can only imagine how much pain he suffered in the first weeks of his life. It is Tony's enormous fortune that he was fostered and then adopted by Paula, her husband Mark, and their children, who have loved and looked after him ever since. Tony's case is extreme, but sadly it is not unique. Last December, the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children said that almost 17,000 cases of child cruelty or neglect were reported to the police in the past 5 years. An average of over 3,000 cases each year, double the number reported in the previous 5 years. Sadly, too few result in conviction. Paula had to take Tony's case back to the courts after the CPS initially failed to bring a successful charge against his biological parents. And I am pursuing the possible reasons behind this with the Minister, with whom I had a fruitful meeting last week, and I'm grateful to see him in his place. I would also like to thank him for the time he has taken in considering this, and I look forward to further discussions with him on this matter. I realise that child cruelty is a difficult crime to take through the courts, and these figures reflect this fact, not least because it is so often conducted in secret behind closed doors, with the only victim, a child, as their witness. I understand that proving the intent to harm is therefore extremely hard. I realise this means that prosecutions for grievous bodily harm, with the harsher punishments that would then be available, are not easy to bring. But should that really mean that the sentence is lighter than that would have been available? Carers and parents who harm the children they are responsible for are betraying a trust and undermining our society. It is a wrong that we all know cries out for justice. That is why I welcome the legal reform that was introduced a number of years ago and enabled us to bring the child cruelty charges in the first place. But should the difficulty really lead to a more lenient sentence? Why does an individual who commits grievous bodily harm face a maximum sentence of life, or more often 16 years in prison, while those who commit child cruelty or neglect have a maximum of 10 years? As the judge said, in this exceptional circumstance, he would have given more had it been available. In exceptional circumstances such as Tony's, when the only two people in the house were jointly responsible for the harm done to an innocent baby, the difficulty of proving intent should not allow a lighter punishment. And in cases like Tony's, where his abuse is better described as torture, how can child cruelty attract a maximum sentence that is so much shorter when the young victims of such cruelty may live with the consequences for their whole lives? To address this discrepancy and to give judges more discretion, I propose amending two acts: the Domestic Violence, Crimes and Victims Act 2004 and the Children and Young Persons Act 1933, extending the term of the relevant sentences. These amendments are not intended to be used often. Indeed, I pray, as I'm sure we all do, that they are never used at all. But they would allow for longer sentences in line with crimes against adults, crimes that are more public, crimes that are more visible, crimes that are not hidden behind closed doors, but which have similarly life-changing consequences, and only in the exceptional circumstances where judges think that they are more appropriate. I seek to do this not only on behalf of Tony Hudgell, but for all those innocent children who have been or are at risk of falling victim to the most awful of crimes. Mr. Deputy Speaker, forgive me. I beg to move that this bill be carried.
That the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
It's you. Who will bring in the bill?
Sarah Champion, Tim Lawton, Bob Blackman, Philip Davies, Edward Vasey, Henry Smith, Ruth Smeeth, Ian Austin, Victoria Prentice, John Mann, Nicky Morgan and I.